Well, in today's great video that we have for you, George Stephanopoulos confronts America's new chief diplomat just this morning about President Donald Trump issuing roughly 1,500 January 6 pardons. Now, 4 years ago, Marco Rubio took a public stand at a potentially personal political expense. Now, after we show you his careful assessment of the ramifications of that day, we're going to check out today's revealing piece as Stephanopoulos confronts the now unanimously confirmed Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. And as you'll see, his tune changes just a bit. Here's Rubio after the insurrection and the assault on the nation's capital, January 6th.
Today was one of the saddest days in our history. It was a national embarrassment. We now have third world countries that are lecturing us, and we have tin pot dictators that are mocking us. But sadly, today seems almost inevitable. Because with our increasingly heated rhetoric and our wild conspiracies, our politics has been playing with fire for a long, long time. You know, in the days and weeks leading up to today, I've heard from my friends and my family, from supporters, from everyday Floridians, from people on my side of the political aisle who are very upset. They're angry that the news media and social media, they censored news stories that were harmful for Joe Biden, and they did it right before the vote. They're angry that state officials mutilated their own state election laws. And the result is that they have serious doubts about the integrity of the election. And so they want us to fight. They want us to fight against what happened. They want us to stand with President Trump. Many of my colleagues, they wanted to show a fight by objecting to the electors of several states. Now, the objectors themselves, they acknowledged it wasn't going to pass. It isn't going to change anything, but it's a way to send a message, to let them know that we're not just going to sit by and let this happen without saying something. But then today, a woman died here. Today, police officers were hurt here. And now is no longer the time for that kind of message. I've lived my entire life with and alongside people who came to America fleeing countries plagued by political violence and by chaos. Today, America looked like the countries that they came here to get away from. Now, that makes them very happy in China. They're more confident than ever that America is on the way down and the future belongs to them. Vladimir Putin loved everything that happened today because what happened is better than anything he could have ever come up with to make us look like we're falling apart. And in Iran, the Ayatollah is thrilled because it's proof that the great Satan, as he calls us, is on its way to collapse. But here's what they don't realize, and what we must rediscover once again, that America isn't our government. America's our families. America isn't our president. It's our faith in an all-powerful God. America isn't our Congress. It's our communities. Today is one of our saddest days, but starting right here tonight, we have a chance to turn the page, to return to this battered Capitol and do our job, and once again transfer power from one administration to the next, and then in our families, in our homes, in our faith, and in our communities, to author the next chapter in the story of America, and it will be the greatest chapter yet.
Well, that story certainly took a different turn, as you're about to see in our interview today from ABC's Good Morning America. George Stephanopoulos quizzes newly confirmed Secretary of State Marco Rubio about those very comments and now how the international community will receive the news of these pardons. Also, he talks about his position on the TikTok ban. Let's check it out.
Now we're going to speak with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. Congratulations on unanimous confirmation by the Senate. That's rare these days. Let's begin with January 6 pardons. Back when this happened, you called it a national embarrassment, saying we now have third world countries that are lecturing us and we have tin pot dictators that are mocking us. Of course, you're now America's top diplomat. You'll be speaking with your counterparts around the world. What message does that pardon send to them?
Well, I don't anticipate a single one of our partners will ask about it, obviously, and you know this well from your time in the administration. And my job is to focus on the foreign policy of the United States. I have a different job this morning and a different focus, and it's one that demands 100% of our attention. And so that's what I'll be focused on, and won't be opining on domestic matters at this point because, frankly, my focus needs to be 100% on how I interact with our counterparts, our adversaries, our potential enemies around the world to keep this country safe, to make it prosperous. That's the clear mandate from the president. It's what he campaigned on. I think he made it pretty clear yesterday that he wants to reinvigorate an American foreign policy that makes America safer and stronger and more prosperous. That's what the promise that Donald Trump was elected to keep, and that's the one we're going to help him keep at the Department of State.
But as a senator, you did say that it affected our standing in the world. You don't believe that anymore?
Well, as a senator, I had an opinion on all kinds of domestic matters, but now I'm focused singularly on foreign policy, on how I interact with our allies. For example, my first meeting right out of the box as soon as I'm sworn in and get over to the State Department is with the members of the so-called Quad, which are our important allies in Australia and in Japan and India. And we'll be talking to them, and we'll be focused on that. None of these domestic topics are going to come up. They're going to be focused on how do we make our relationship one that increases and strengthens not just our position in the world, but, for example, freedom of navigation in the Indo-Pacific. And those are the kinds of things that we're going to be focused on 100%, and that's the things I'll be talking about.
President Trump also issued the executive order to delay the ban on TikTok yesterday. As a senator, you led the charge in warning that the app poses a major national security risk. It exposes the data of millions of Americans to being stolen by the Chinese government. So why give TikTok a break now? Do you endorse this move?
Well, the law, which I supported, also includes in it, and it gives the president a 90-day window in which he can delay it going into effect. For example, if you have a potential deal on the table for someone to purchase. In the end, this was never a TikTok ban. This is a ban on companies controlled by foreign entities and the risk it poses to the United States. As part of that law, what it hopes to achieve in many ways is it either stops operating or it is no longer controlled by a company under the control of the Chinese Communist Party or any other foreign power for that matter. And so it gives the president a 90-day window in which to now hopefully find someone that will buy it or some arrangement that will deal with this. The law was written in such a way so it would have kicked in the day before a new administration. So I think it's fair to assume that a new administration would need more than just a handful of hours coming into power to make a decision on how they want to handle it, on which deal they think would be the right one. The president's outlined a model of a joint venture in which the United States would have an interest and a controlling interest in a way that would protect us. And so I think he's talked about a 75-day window of those 90 that he wants to use to see if an arrangement can be found. But ultimately, Congress passed a law and the executive will have to execute on it. But that law gives the president the right to do exactly what he's doing now, and that is to take a pause and see if there is an arrangement that can allow people to continue to use a platform that clearly people like, but at the same time protect our national interests.
Well, Marco Rubio, he's going to be looked to as the only voice of reasonable reason in the incoming cabinet by many. And as such, we'll certainly be watching his words and deeds closely on Occupy Democrats as we move into a brave new world indeed.